carrying it out?
Yes, correct. We're talking about people carrying by mistake as a result of the involvement in the mitzvah. And Rabbi Yossi says that the person will be exempt from bringing a korban regarding Shabbat. It will be a korban chatat because since he made a mistake while being involved in a mitzvah, that will exempt him from bringing the korban. So now we're up to Meitive. And now the Gemara is going to question Rav Huna. Because Rav Huna, we had Rav Huna. What did Rav Huna say? The Gemara said that Rav Huna said that if you had a situation where the birds, we said that the birds got mixed up together, the bird, the chata ta'of, the bird that you're supposed to eat, the Kohanim eat the chatat, and the ola is the bird that gets completely consumed on the mizbeach. And if a person went ahead and by mistake he ate the bird that he was not supposed to, the bird that was supposed to be consumed on the mizbeach, he ate. Rav Huna said that even in that case, Rav Yossi would hold that he would be exempt from a korban, even though a mitzvah was not performed. It's not like the guy who carried the lulav and did by mistake in their public place and did the mitzvah subsequently with that lulav that he carried. This person, the act that he did, he went ahead and he ate. He didn't do a mitzvah. He went ahead and he ate the animal that he was not supposed to eat. But since he was involved in a mitzvah, even though a mitzvah wasn't performed in connection with what he did, he's still exempt from the korban. That is the Rav Huna's extension of Rabbi Yosef's law. Rabbi Yosef's law, being involved in a mitzvah and you made a mistake as a result of that involvement, is not only if it led to, if a mitzvah was performed, even if a mitzvah wasn't performed, but your busyness and hurriness was as a result of this of the mitzvah, that also would be enough to exempt you from a korban. So now the Gemara challenges it. Rav Yossi Omer, shochet et hatamid she'eino mevukak el chato. For a person that slaughtered a tamid, the tamid is the daily offering that is brought on the mizbeach, and there is a certain halacha that you have to go ahead for 4 days. You have to observe the korban before you bring the offering. For 4 days, you look at the korban, you check the korban that there shouldn't be any blemishes. That is the law that you have to go ahead and regarding the korban. But what happened? The person did not. This animal that he used was not checked properly. Was not checked for 4 days, and therefore that korban is invalid. You can't use this korban for the offering. And Tosfos says, even if it comes out at the end of the day that there was no blemish, but if there was not 4 days of checking this animal before you did the shritah, so then it's not good. So what happened? He went ahead and he took this tamid, this korban, that was not checked properly, and he went ahead and he slaughtered on Shabbat. On Shabbat, even though one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat is you're not allowed to go ahead and slaughter an animal, but nevertheless, for Shabbat, the Torah says that you're allowed to go ahead and then slaughter an animal for the purpose of the daily offering. On Shabbat we have the same every day. We have the animal, the sheep that we bring in the morning, the sheep that we bring in the afternoon. Then there's extra korbanot on Shabbat that we bring, extra offerings. That's why the term musaf. Musaf means extra. That's why there's extra offerings, and we pray corresponding to those, in those offerings that were brought in the Beit HaMikdash was extra offerings. but the right to go ahead and slaughter those animals is only under certain circumstances. But if the animal was not um, checked properly, then there's no allowance. It's invalid for the offering, and therefore the slaughtering was a violation of the Shabbat. To here, the person violated the Shabbat unintentionally, right? He made a mistake. He took an animal that he should not have used. It was unintentional. And we say, chayev chatat. He has to bring a chatat. He has to bring a sin offering because there was he violated Shabbat unintentionally. The sarich tamid acher. He has to go ahead and bring a different korban, another tamid. So what do we see from here? We see from here that even though he was involved in the mitzvah, the mistake was as a result of being involved in the mitzvah. So yet we see that even a mistake involved in a mitzvah, you would be exempt from you would be obligated to korban. And now, why would be obligated to korban? Even though, good morning, Simon. Even though Rabbi Yossi says you are patur, morning, but the reason why he would say you're obligated to korban would seem to be because a mitzvah was not performed. Because what you did was you actually slaughtered an animal which is not fit for the korban. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Rabbi.
I was thinking of you this morning, Mark. I'm hoping I'll see Mark this morning.
Yeah, here I am.
Very good. So what we're discussing here in the Mishnah, we had, just to bring Mark up to date, we had Rav Yossi says a following halacha. You know, the Mishnah is talking about Shabbat. In the time of the Beit HaMikdash, they would take the lulav. If the first day of Sukkot came out on Shabbat, they would take the lulav on Shabbat. First day of Sukkot came out on Shabbat, they would take the lulav, but they would not take it. They would not. Of course, they can't carry in the street. You can't carry in Reshut Rabim. So what they did was, the Mishnah said that everybody would bring their lulav to the synagogue before Shabbat, and in the synagogue they would take. And Friday they would bring the lulav. And on Shabbat, they would go and get up early in the morning. They would bring to everyone would recognize their lulav and take their lulav. But what happened if a person, by mistake, on Shabbat morning, he went out and he carried his lulav by mistake? Maybe he wanted to go to the rabbi to show him how to do the shaking of the lulav, to say the bracha. So he carried lulav. So he violated the Shabbat. Usually, a person violates the Shabbat unintentionally. If he did one of the third day malachot, carry a Shabbat in public domain, go from a private domain to public domain, is one of the malachot of Shabbat. You know, we're talking about a place where there's no eruv. Usually he has to bring a korban chatat. It's called a sin offering for violating the Shabbat. There's one of two ways that a person brings a sin offering by violating Shabbat. Either you went ahead and you forgot it was Shabbat. I know I can't do this thing, but I forgot it was Shabbat. Or I knew it was Shabbat, but I didn't know the thing was forbidden to do. I didn't know I can't boil up water on Shabbat. I didn't know I can't take raw water, take water and boil up on Shabbat. And I violated the prohibition of cooking. So usually you would think that if he carries his lulav on Shabbat, in public domain, unintentionally, he should bring a korban chatat. Comes Rav Yossi and he says no. He has a source for following law that if you're involved in a mitzvah, and as a result of your involvement in the mitzvah that the mistake happened, you do not bring a korban chatat for such a sin. When you on your own, you weren't involved in a mitzvah, and you just carried if you forgot it was Shabbat, and you carried, that's the case where you go ahead and have to go ahead and bring a korban. But if the act that was violated was as a result of being involved in a mitzvah, then you're exempt from bringing a korban. And here you were involved in a mitzvah of lulav, and you forgot, and you carried it into the public domain. That's the Guru of Yossi. Rav Huna extended it, even if what you see, when you went ahead and you took the lulav by mistake, you went to the rabbi, you were going to the rabbi to teach you the law, let's say, but eventually you went ahead and you did a mitzvah eventually. But what about if your act did not lead to a mitzvah at all? You went ahead and you made a mistake, but your action of making a mistake was what was accomplished with no mitzvah was that there was no end result of a mitzvah. So Rav Huna says, even when there's no mitzvah that happened at the end, let's say you made a mistake, Rav Huna said, the type of mistake you made, you went ahead and you ate a korban, an offering that you were involved in korban, you were involved in eating a korban, and by mistake you ate the wrong offering, an offering that was supposed to be brought completely on the mizbeach, on the altar, a korban olah, and you ate it by mistake. So you did not perform a mitzvah. You made a mistake as a result of a mitzvah, and no mitzvah happened. And the opposite, what happened was you just it didn't eventually lead to a mitzvah. You actually, the end was that you ate something that you should not eat. So even though a mitzvah was not performed at the end, still Rabbi Yossi would say, at the end of the day, the reason why you got yourself in trouble, so to speak, or you made this mistake, because you were involved in a mitzvah. So involvement in a mitzvah and a mitzvah wasn't performed, you're still exempt from the korban. You're still exempt from being a korban for violating that prohibition that you did, as long as it's a result of your being occupied in a mitzvah that caused this problem. And the Gemara, what do you say? Say it again. Was all done unintentionally. Comes the Gemara and challenges this second point. The Gemara is challenging that, you know what? I found a case. I found a case that you were involved in a mitzvah, and yet, since the mitzvah was not performed, did not lead to a mitzvah, you have to bring a korban chatat. We don't say if you made a mistake in a mitzvah, you're exempt because you were involved in a mitzvah. You're exempt from a korban in a case when a mitzvah did not eventually lead to a mitzvah, because what's the case? The Gemara says. The Gemara says if you have a korban tamid, the daily offering, let's say it comes Shabbat, they would bring the offering. There's the same way every morning we have a korban, every Shabbat, the same korban that we bring every morning, you bring on Shabbat. If a person, now the special law, you have to check the korban for 4 days. And what happens if the guy did not check the korban for 4 days? Then it's not valid for you can't use it for a korban. On Shabbat, you have a right to slaughter an animal, which is generally we said is one of the malachot on Shabbat. He went ahead and he slaughtered the animal but he slaughtered an animal that he should not have been slaughtering, but the animal was not checked properly for 4 days. We say that he violated the Shabbat because he did not fulfill the mitzvah of slaughtering a korban on Shabbat, and he has to bring a chatat. He has to bring a sin offering. Why does he have to bring a sin offering? According to Rav Huna, that says when you were involved in a mitzvah and you made a mistake, so according to Rav Huna, you should not have to bring an offering. There was, let's say, you should not have to bring a sin offering because the mistake that you went ahead and you took the animal that was not checked was as a result of you're involved in a mitzvah, and by mistake you took the wrong animal. So why should you have to bring a korban chatat by making that mistake? You should not have to bring the korban chatat because you're involved in a mitzvah. And Rav Huna and according to Rav Huna's understanding of Yossi, when you're involved in a mitzvah, even if the mitzvah was not performed, did not lead to a mitzvah eventually. Because like over here, but the case was when the animal was slaughtered, the wrong animal was slaughtered, no mitzvah was performed. And you have to redo it. You have to slaughter a different animal. Why should you be obligated to go ahead and bring another korban? Why should you bring a korban chatat? Why should you bring a sin offering for that act? This came as a result of being involved in a mitzvah. That is the Gemara's challenge. Mark, is it clear or not clear?
I'm on mute. Yes, it's very clear. So
Okay.
it's the same. It's not the same way you repeat Amidah if you said the wrong one. But this is different because you're not just fixing the thing you did wrong. You're also bringing. You still have to do the original korban, don't you?
He has to redo. If he went ahead and he ate,
now he's bringing 2 korban. Now
right? He has
to
to
two.
exactly 2. It's a new the daily offering has to be brought because he doesn't get credit for that one that was slaughtered that was not checked properly. Plus, he has to bring a personal that's on a communal level, and on an individual level, this person has to
bring
bring,
hatat.
let's say, a nucha chatat. But why? He was involved in a mitzvah. He should be patur from bringing a chatat. That's the Gemara's challenge to Rav Huna.
Right. Well, on a comparison of if we compare korban to tefillah, we would. When you said you didn't say Yalev Yavo, you didn't say the right Amidah. You have to do it again, but you don't have to do anything extra. You know,
Right.
There's nothing we do that equals the hatat, I guess.
Right. Because here we're talking about the violation of desecrating the Shabbat. Exactly.
Right.
So the Gemara says, Amalei bar minadahi. That challenge that you're challenging me from the case of the animal, of the communal offering, the daily communal offering that was not checked properly, that's different. That's different from the case when we had a different case in the Gemara when the offering, the bird, when the chatat bird and the ola bird, one is a korban of chatat and one is a korban ola. When those birds got mixed up, that case is different than the case of taking an animal that was not checked for 4 days. And we're going to see that one case there's a negligence, a certain type of negligence, and one case not. Let's see what the Gemara says. And because it was explained, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Chatai, Amar Rav Hamnuna, Saba. Rav Shmuel bar Chatai said in the name of Rav Hamnuna Saba, who said in the name of Rav Yitzchak bar Shimon, who said in the name of Rav Huna Marav. We got a whole nice long list of rabbis, once quoting this rabbi, who quoted this rabbi, quoted that rabbi. He said in the name, that what? Kagon Shehiviyah Melishka She'ena Muvokarim. There are different places by the Beit HaMikdash. There are different areas by the Beit HaMikdash. There are certain areas that have animals that are checked. You know, these areas are the animals that were already checked for 4 days. And there's certain areas, you know, when the animal has already had its 4-day checking, okay, you'll place it into this area. Animal did not have its 4-day checking, you got to place it in a different area. Come on, exactly. These animals are ready to go. They're ready to roll. We're ready to use them. And these animals, they're not ready to use them. So if he went ahead and he went to the area of the animals that were not checked for 4 days, that type of mistake is not, you can't say that it's a mistake, it's a result of the mitzvah. He should have been more careful. In the case when the animals, the Gemara says, when the Ola and the Chatat, it was talking about when they were both in the same area and they had a right to be in the same area, and then he made an honest mistake. But this is not called an honest mistake. When you go to the wrong storage area, when you know where you're not supposed to be going to, we're not going to give you say, okay, you know what? Since the sin happened as a result of you being involved in a mitzvah, you're going to be exempt from the korban. You weren't on top of your game. There's some negligence there, and therefore we're not going to say you're off from the korban. That's the mishla she'enim v'korim. And well, Ralph, you want to say something before I say the Rashi? Different type of blemishes, different types of things, you know, on the animal, you know, wounds or other things. The animal gets certain wounds, it would validate the animal.
4-day period, it has to be
under supervision for those 4 days. And Rashi says that's not called Tov b'dvar mitzvah. That's not called really making a mistake as a result of a mitzvah, because you were not busy in this storage area. This storage area is not, it was not an area that's open for use, because it's not 4 days, it wasn't checked for 4 days. You know, sometimes Rashi says the word, you know, you're so busy, you want to do using this for the mitzvah, but this is not nothing to do with a mitzvah, these areas. So therefore, Rashi says it's karov lemezid, it's close to mezid. It's not actually intentional, but there's a certain level of negligence here we're not going to call it that you get the ticket. You know, you could put forward, I got a ticket that says I'm out, I'm free from this korban because I was involved in a mitzvah. And therefore, since you went to the storage area where you had no right to go to, so therefore that's not called Torah, but you made a mistake in the mitzvah, and therefore you have to bring a korban chatat, a sin offering. Okay. Now we have a new Mishnah. Mikabelet isha miyad beno miyad baila mahziroto lemayim b'Shabbat. A woman are exempt from the mitzvah of lulav. As we know, we encourage women, my humble opinion, we encourage women to take the lulav and etrog on Sukkot, but they, according to Sephardi opinion, according to I would say for sure Avadi Yosef, and many of the Sephardi opinions, the lady should not say a bracha on the lulav when she takes it throughout the holiday of Sukkot. Ashkenaz opinion is the ladies will say a bracha on the lulav, right, Mark? Good morning. The ladies do not say, for the Sephardi community, do not say a bracha. And the reason for that is because the taking of the lulav by the women is not, there's no obligation for the women to take the lulav. So therefore, the Sephardi opinion said, how could you say the words Asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivonu? You sanctified us with the mitzvot, right? Every mitzvah makes you holy, and it commanded us. You're not commanded in the mitzvah. So therefore, they don't say the bracha. The Ashkenaz opinion, Tosfos, based on Tosfot, is that the Sivonu was going. The Jewish community as a whole was Hashem at Sinai obligated the mitzvah in the Torah, the Sivonu of taking a lulav. So therefore, they could say the bracha. That's the machloket in the opinion. Now, we have a Gemara that says that women, bless you, even though they're not obligated in the mitzvah, the mitzvot that are time bound, but yet they get there are exceptions, of course, to the rule, like Purim is coming up. Purim is a time bound mitzvah, they are obligated, but they get a mitzvah, the Gemara says, when women do mitzvot that they're not obligated. So the Mishnah says, Mikabelet Isha. Now it's Shabbat, and the men, the first day of the holiday comes down on Shabbat. The men are taking the lulav, right? We said in the time of the Beit Hamikdash, can the lady handle the lulav on Shabbat? Is it muksah for her? Is it muksah for her since she has? Some of the mefarshim are bothered by the question: why should it be muksah for her? She has a right to take it herself. She has a right to take the lulav and use it for the mitzvah. Maybe whether she'll say a bracha or not. So some actually explain that's what the chidush of the Mishnah is. That since she has a right to take it for herself, it's not muksah for her. She has a right to use it. If she would not be able to use the lulav, the lady would not be able to use the lulav. Maybe it would be considered muksah for her, perhaps. No, this is going. The man is using it on Shabbat. This is going at the time of the Beit Hamikdash. Today's day and age, lulav is mukseh. We don't use it. We have no use for the lulav on Shabbat. What use? We can't do the mitzvah today on Shabbat because we're worried that if you're going to take the lulav on Shabbat, you might come to carry in a public property, right? So we say you can't take the lulav even if the first day of Sukkot comes on Shabbat. And therefore, for us today, the lulav, the hadassim, the aravot, are mukseh. The only thing that's not mukseh, according to many opinions, is the etrog. The etrog is not considered mukseh because technically you're allowed to go ahead and smell the etrog. And since you can smell the etrog, even if you can't take the etrog for the mitzvah of lulav, but you can smell it. So therefore, the etrog is not technically mukseh. Many don't smell an etrog throughout the holiday. But there's a whole question whether if you smell the etrog during the holiday season, do you say a bracha on the etrog of Hanotin Reach Tov B'Peirot? Do you say a bracha? So we don't say it, so because we don't say, because we're not sure if we should say it or not. So therefore, some say, don't smell it, because if you're smelling it, you might be benefiting from something without a bracha. It's the same way you can't eat without a bracha, certain things that you can't think that you can't.
You know, the idea of saying one day, right? So-
But 100. You give $101 a day.
Well, please do.
Say it again?
Well, please.
Right.
So one of the guys in school brings,
Samim, Atasim.
seed, and he brings, mint. So you say,
I say,
It's bad. Say both benefits. Then some people, he gives them, etrog or something, and they say berachah, the rabbi said.
they should have
"You
stayed
shouldn't
zip.
say it." Rebuked him. But then he said, it's okay to smell it. So I smell it, I don't make a berachah, but according to you, you're saying it might be a problem.
Right. It could, right.
Better not even smell it.
That's what we'll look into that. That's what I would think so. Now, the reason why, if the rabbi said that he could smell it, was probably the rabbi is saying, because suffix brachot lahakel. This is a suffix whether you need to make a bracha on it or not. Was probably the rabbi is saying you shouldn't make a bracha if you're not sure. If the halacha is not clear. Good morning, Mars. The halacha is not clear when you say a bracha on the etrog during the holiday, so therefore suffix brachot lahakel. But he's not telling you don't smell it. I'm saying to you maybe better. I'm saying my opinion, my understanding is better not to smell to avoid that situation.
But why would you say that?
Because since it's during the holiday you're using it for so all year round, you would say bracha on the etrog. But your rabbi is saying on the holiday of Sukkot specifically. You sure? So I'm going to give you homework, Mars. Okay, I want to give you homework. You know what? I'll tell you what we're going to do first. I'm going to take out the halacha next week, Monday, Be'ez Hashem. We'll look at it inside and we'll see what it says. Okay? And then after that, we're going to talk to the rabbi. Okay? We're going to do our
Specifically,
with every Shabbat.
every Shabbat is the Pesamim.
And the rabbi said on Shabbat, you should. That's interesting. Every Shabbat. Okay? So we're gonna do some homework and we'll try to. Okay, I thought you talked about the Shabbat of Yom Tov. You're saying every week you say not to. Okay, then we're gonna do homework on this. Okay, we got homework. Okay, Morris, we're on 42a in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah states, "Mikabelet isha miad bena miad baila." The Mishnah says, even though she's not obligated in the mitzvah of lulav, she can handle but and it's Shabbat, in the time when when there was a mitzvah, when the men took the lulav on Shabbat, she could take the lulav from her husband or from her son, right? Miad babina miad baila, umachzirato lemayim, and she's allowed to go ahead and put it back into the water, right? They would keep the lulav fresh. So here we don't say it's similar to watering a plant, by putting it back into the water. Here, the water is not making it grow in any fashion. The water is just keeping it fresh. So here it says you can put it back in the water that it shouldn't dry. Now, even on Shabbat, and the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says the following. But Shabbat Malzirim. On Shabbat, you're allowed to go ahead and put the lulav back into the water, but you're not allowed to add any water. You can't add any water. You can't switch any water. You can't be busying yourself on Shabbat for the lulav. Only thing you could do is put it back into the water that you took it from, but be Yom Tov. But if it's Yom Tov, he says Mosifin. You're allowed to even go ahead to do a little bit of tircha, a little bit of extra effort of adding some water, even though you can't do it on Shabbat, but a little bit of water you could add, but you cannot change the water. Ubamoed machlifin. And when it comes to the holiday, Chalamoed, the intermediate days, then you could change, like Simon says, you could change the water. The Mishnah continues, Katan hayodea linanea, a child that knows how to wave the lulav properly, like we say, you wave it in each direction 3 times. Chayav belulav. That's the time you have to train the child. Meaning, there's a time period at which age you have to train the child, and there's a chiyuv, there's an obligation of training children. Right, because Yom Tov, there's more allowances to to go ahead and Shabbat is highlighted.
Adding water on Yom Tov, the only difference between Yom Tov and Shabbat are you're allowed to cook, you're allowed to carry.
Cook, carry, right, and certain things related to fire as well, as we know. From a pre-existing fire, you can, even if it's not for the purpose of cooking.
Fire and here they're making something completely out of that realm of being, and now we're saying you can add water on Yom Tov, but not on Shabbat. You might come to do it on Shabbat. Where's the protection?
Right. So I presume to answer Mark's question, the issue of the adding of the water is an issue of tircha. It seems like it's, today's day and age, maybe it, we're talking about adding water, which is considered you're busying yourself and exerting a certain amount of effort by adding the water. That effort is in Shabbat Yom Tov is a time period that we don't want you to be exerting yourself in ways that are not necessary. But if it's for Yom Tov for the purpose of this mitzvah of lulav, so they were a little more lenient. Meaning, what's the reason why we should be more lenient? Because the okay, so maybe with the fact is that we do find, like you pointed out, good morning, we do find we do more tircha on Yom Tov than Shabbat. We do busy ourselves more with all the cooking and everything we do on Shabbat. So maybe the fact that we find the precedent that when it comes to Yom Tov, we do busy ourselves. We're very busy cooking on Yom Tov. We're not doing all that tircha on Shabbat. So perhaps they found that since we find that there are areas of tircha that we are doing on Yom Tov, so here, even though it's not cooking, so they said a minimal amount, we will give it a little bit. We're not going to allow you to change the water on Yom Tov. That's already too much. But maybe, perhaps, since we found that precedent, so they could be a little bit more, that they were open up. And also, there's another point, Mark. For Yom Tov, maybe, for the kavod of Yom Tov, so maybe that concept, for the mitzvah, they were a little bit, even though Shabbat would also be the mitzvah. But maybe they didn't want to, for Shabbat, Shabbat is more strict in the fact that we don't do, there's more things we don't do on Shabbat. We don't do cooking, so therefore they were more concerned about Shabbat, and they were concerned, therefore they were a little more easier on Yom Tov.
East, west.
We have to see the Sephardi opinion. I think they start to the right, right? You start to the right first, right?
South, north, east, west. South, north, east, west. I'm not putting it out later. This is south. South. That's south. Yes. You totally put it. That's south. South, north, east, west.
Okay.
And then the second time, you go around all the way to the south from west. Go all the way around.
Okay, so you go here. It's based on that Rizal. The way the Sfardim do it, even though the Shulchan Aruch says the Ashkenaz way, but they based on their Rizal, and that's what their custom is. You go south, north, east, up, down, and then west. You got it? South. Again, you got it. You got to get it. South, north, east, straight at east. Okay, right. You're right. I'm sorry. I got to be this. East, up, down, and then is the west. Got it? That is the Sephardi custom.
even when you're west, the next one will do sometimes do two in a row. You don't go west to south, you go all the way around to south.
Okay, now the Mishnah states, Katan hayodeh lenaneh. Now there's a mitzvah to train your son to do the mitzvah of what? Of lulav. Like all the mitzvot. We don't want this is a rabbinic law. On a Torah law, a child if you're under bar mitzvah, or she has no obligation, right, Morris, to take the lulav. The Torah obligated mitzvot to adults. The Torah Gemara did not obligate mitzvot to minors. They don't have obligations because they're on a Torah level because they're missing in knowledge. They're called Eina Ben Dat. They're not mature enough to ask them. The Torah did not feel, Hashem did not feel the children are mature enough to give them the obligation. The great rabbi said, we got to start training the children. We can't say that boom, at 13, they're going to already know they're going to be on top of their game to take the lulav properly if they never trained for it. You got to give it training. So the question is, at which point do you train? When is a kid ready that we have an obligation to go ahead and train that child to do that mitzvah? At what point does the father has the mitzvah to train the child? At what point does the father have to train the child? So the Mishnah states, the point is not the day that a child can hold the lulav. That's not, and some commentators explain, even though technically the mitzvah could be performed when you just pick up lulav, but that's not the way you do the mitzvah when you become an adult. You do it not only you pick up lulav, you shake the lulav, and also I would just say it's a lack. If a kid does not know how to shake it, it's also shows a certain level of the mitzvah he's not really capable of doing. So therefore, if only when he's able to shake the lulav properly, that's the time that you go ahead and he has enough knowledge to say that's when you have to train him. Chayav mitzvah belulav. At that point, you are obligated to train the child to take the lulav. Now, so the Gemara says, Shita. The Gemara opens up with explaining the first law of the Mishnah. What was the first law of the Mishnah? The first law of the Mishnah was that a lady on Shabbat, in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, when they took the lulav on the Shabbat, if the first day came out on Shabbat, a lady is allowed to handle the lulav, take it from her husband, take it from her son, and put it back into the water. So the Gemara says, Pshita. Isn't that obvious? Morning, Rabbi Mansour. Isn't that obvious that a lady could take it from could take it from her husband? Why would you think she can't take it from her husband? So the Gemara says, Mao the Tema. The Gemara says, you might have thought, a lady is not obligated to take the lulav. Maybe you would say she's not allowed to handle the lulav, take it from her husband. Maybe it's mukseh for her. She has no use for it. Kamash Malan comes the Mishnah, no, that it's not considered mukseh for the woman, either because she has a right to do the mitzvah with the lulav. It's not, or because the fact is, at the end of the day, this lulav is a mitzvah for a husband. And the fact that for a husband it's not considered mukseh, it's not considered mukseh for her. And therefore, not on the Shabbat, in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, when the husband was allowed to take the lulav on Shabbat, he's using the lulav, it's not mukseh. Since it's not mukseh for the husband, it's not mukseh for the what? For the wife. But in today's day, when we do not take the lulav on Shabbat, the lulav will be mukseh. I want to wish for both, for everybody. I want to wish everybody. By the way, even when you said, when Mark said they take hadassim on Shabbat, the hadassim, if on Shabbat of Sukkot, if they would not use the hadassim from the lulav, they would use other hadassim you could use to make the bracha. I want to clarify what you said. Have a great day, everybody. Have a safe trip. Yeah, beautiful trip. We're going to miss you.